Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our play-by-email game against XTRG. Today we are watching the replay of the final turn of the month of January 1942. We are 2 full months into the campaign. I guess technically that would be February 7th, but nonetheless, 2 months completed, December done, January done. It's only taken us nearly a year, but we are making progress on this interesting war, and we'll see how things continue to progress. Now, we do know that the Japanese have been making a drive toward the island of Celebes. They've landed on Maskar, they've landed on Kendari, Manadao has fallen, and so they're wrapping up their control over this island, which will surely give them a decisive edge from an air power perspective over the southern half of the Dutch East Indies, and so that's something that's going to change the dynamic of the campaign pretty substantially. I think the good news is it does seem like he's at least shifting some of his attention away from Fiji or Pago Pago, or at least we haven't seen a lot of action down in that way, nor have we seen him go for the throat at Nomaya yet on New Caledonia, which may be far enough south for him to exert his influence as he sees fit. But we'll see. You know, he needs to turn to the Dutch East Indies to make sure that he's getting enough fuel for powering his economy, but thus far he really hasn't. So he's waited till February to start making a drive there. He hasn't really taken any major oil-producing facilities. He took Miri, but that's about the only thing on the northern Borneo coast, and he hasn't taken anything else. We haven't seen any sign of any fuel convoys moving or anything like that, and so it'll be interesting to see kind of how his strategy potentially shifts. Meanwhile, we've got a surface engagement of the the I-122 against a tender ship, the Canopus, and he is putting a bunch of deck guns into the Canopus here. I believe it's a Dutch tender ship, took 3 shell hits. She'll probably go down. And he's landing on Manus, so he is still driving in the South Pacific, but he's kind of shifted more toward the historical objectives. He landed a division at Buna the other day. He just landed on Manus, which is a island north of the Bismarck Archipelago. So again, no longer reaching super far south, down toward like New Caledonia and Fiji, at least at this point, but that's where he's at right now. Meanwhile, it looks like there's a ship in port at Savi, which is interesting because we haven't seen any indication of him resupplying forces at Savi, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. We do have a reasonably strong force at Pago, which might be something worthwhile sending some aircraft up there to investigate. Meanwhile, a Dutch submarine launches a torpedo at a troop transport torpedo. The torpedoes miss, and now the Japanese are responding with depth charging of their own here against this Dutch sub. We flooded the Seram Sea and the Banda Sea with friendly submarines, but thus far they really haven't done anything. We haven't really done anything to the Japanese invasion forces near Celebes or anything else like that. You can see a bunch of destroyers and destroyer transports near Moluccas, but again, nothing happening here. We've got one of our old S-boats that actually have the good Mark 10 torpedoes trying to get in position to attack, but again, they're being hit by enemy submarine chasers, and they're dropping depth charges. Fortunately, the water here is deeper. We're not quite in the shore hex, so they are able to dive a little bit deeper, and you saw the first couple of depth charges detonated too high. These are not, but the sub-skipper's doing a good job of evading patterns. We'll fast forward through this. No hits on the S-37 as we move into the air phase. Sculpin firing some torpedoes at a Japanese destroyer off Torihara, not hitting, no surprise there, and we're moving into the air operation phase. Okay. We're just waiting for some of this stuff to occur. Okay, some fighter sweeps over Singapore, fighter sweeps over Changsha, another sweep of fighters over Changsha, and we'll see if the Japanese start hitting any of the targets in that area with heavy bombers or not. They've really been pretty light on using bombers against Singapore and even against Changsha thus far. He has been using bombers north of Changsha, at our fighter bases there and doing a fair bit of damage there. But other than that, his bombers have been kind of light on the attacks. They've been hitting Bataan, which is to be expected. I did look into... Okay, wow, that's a big raid there against Changsha. 88 bombers, 36 fighter escorts, 63 of them the two-engine Sallies. That's a pretty big raid. 75 Allied casualties, largely from disruption, nothing destroyed. Only 2 Sallies damaged. Meanwhile, another raid here against Bataan. This one a little bit smaller, 47 bombers. 14 of them are two-engine Lilies. The rest are dive bombers. And we've got some Nate fighters. Okay... Fast forward to that. Alright, we've got some bombers coming over Singapore now, about 35 Sonias and Lilies. See if they do any damage there. 4 casualties, not much. A few fighters sweeping over Singapore. We have abandoned Singapore with our fighter aircraft, so that's something to keep in mind. Our fighters have pulled out, for the most part. All the fighters that can fly, anyway, have pulled out, while the ones that are damaged are hopefully repairing up so they can fly out. We're kind of shuttling them back toward Rangoon and toward the Burma-India theater, and then a few of them are shuttling back toward Java and eventually back toward Australia. We have considered bringing some of our torpedo bombers back into the Dutch East Indies in an effort to strike at some of the Japanese shipping that's moving through the various shipping channels. We'll see if that plays out. We can see here the Japanese have moved their carrier group to the west of the Dutch East Indies here, Java and Wepong and Sumba. So that's interesting that he's moved them that far west. That's a pretty aggressive move. I don't really have anything I can do against them. I don't have any large warships, and I don't have any carriers out that way as they sink a cargo ship there. But that is still a very gutsy move by XTRG to move his light carriers to the west of those islands, deep into the heart of Allied seas. We are going to have to scatter some of our shipping to make sure that he doesn't get in amongst our tankers, which have been kind of shuttling back and forth from Oosthaven. But we'll manage that, I think. He's still a little bit of a ways away from any of our tanker task forces, and we've got some other task forces that'll probably capture his attention as well. Okay, we'll go ahead and fast forward here. It's just a lone cargo ship that he operated out of there. It looks like he's launching another 38 Kate torpedo bombers up here on the southern tip of Java. He's not quite close enough to be in range of the aircraft at Surabaya, but if he does venture north, could be an interesting little action here. We've got a few fighters that are scrambling to intercept. I would have preferred they not do that. The real objective was just to have them on fighter escorts, not cap patrol over a base with nothing over it. But I do think there's a couple of light... Oh, there is one valuable ship here, I guess. There is an AS, a sub-tender, so that is valuable here, getting hit by 250-kilogram bombs. Interesting that he's not using torpedoes against it. But a couple of bombs put into it, so that'll be some damage. We'll go ahead and fast forward here. I think I heard one torpedo, though, at least. We lost a B-339D and a Hawk. He put 3 bombs into the Otis. He also put a torpedo. So he is using some torpedoes against these ships. He also put a torpedo into a mine layer here. And most of the ships in this group are support craft. We're going to scramble the Castor and the Holland further north towards Surabaya. Maybe that will draw him north and into range. And if not, oh well. But he is using up some of his torpedoes. Remember, he doesn't have an unlimited supply of torpedoes. And as he uses them up, he will have to have his forts fall back to a large friendly port to replenish torpedo supplies. So I think he would have to go all the way back to Baljalop, or whatever that's called, which is at least 2 to 3 days steaming time to replenish torpedoes. So the more he uses on sort of those small support craft like mine layers, the better, because he doesn't carry a ton of torpedoes. No carriers in general, but especially no Japanese carriers do. So the AG Canopus is sunk. That's fine. More amphibious stuff here at Mascar. We'll go ahead and fast forward through that. Nothing really I can do about that. More landings at Manus. A bombardment attack at Changsha. That's kind of a... what's new there. Okay. So 147 Japanese casualties in the bombardment attack, which means we actually gave a pretty good account of ourselves with counter battery fire. We actually inflicted more casualties on them than they on us. They did destroy 3 squads. We only destroyed 1, but we actually disabled more. It looks like 12 total squads disabled or destroyed versus just 11 on our end. We did lose 2 engineer squads, but he also lost 1 disabled as well. Overall, the Japanese lost more casualties and more victory points because we get a 6-to-1 advantage in victory points per squad destroyed with the Chinese versus the Japanese. So his attempts to reduce Changsha is basically this bombardment is probably, if he's paying attention, what this bombardment is telling him is either that he needs to wait until we don't have enough supply, or he is not strong enough yet to overthrow us. Despite the fact that he has twice our guns, 800 vehicles to our 0, this bombardment is suggesting that our defensive fortifications are enough to mean that he doesn't have a critical mass of soldiers yet. Meanwhile, a deliberate attack at Puqing here, this base kind of linking toward Wenkao. You can see they drove the 21st Chinese Corps back. That's to be expected. We kind of expected this would occur. 61 Japanese casualties, 890 Chinese, 57 squads destroyed, 41 squads destroyed, 17 engineers, 11 guns. That's not great, but, China is a bit of a bloodbath. Meanwhile, a bombardment attack at Nomaya again, so he's not actually assaulting the city yet. It's going to survive into February. 1 squad disabled, no squads destroyed. Our assault value is actually going up. The problem is his troops are going to gain a lot more as they recuperate and get out of disabled status. So as soon as they start attacking, I think we'll fall like a house of cards. But still, a very brave effort. Couple of weeks now, I think, of resistance at Nomaya, but they sold by those soldiers there, and things are working out pretty well. Deliberate attack against an isolated headquarter unit near Haichao here in China. Presumably they drive them back with a few casualties. It's a support unit. Allied bombardment attack at Maskar. I don't know why the Dutch are bombarding the Japanese there, but they did decide to do that, which was dumb. I didn't actually order it. Japanese deliberate attack here against Maskar is successful. They drive back the Dutch forces there, outnumber them 29-1. We had a couple of aircraft destroyed on the ground, 4 Buffaloes, 1 Demon. We had sent them there and they were damaged and we couldn't get them out. So we did lose a few aircraft on the ground. We also lost 686 soldiers to his 28. I mean, these are the kind of, I won't say disasters because they're expected. Like, we fully expect these results to occur. But nonetheless, they'll appear like disasters on the stat sheet, but it's just part of playing the Allies at this phase in the war. Sarmuth Jaws, I ended up getting the Prime Minister killed in that game. My brother was disappeared, and I can't remember what else happened. I'm posting them slowly on my YouTube channel. It's been the worst received series that I've ever put on my YouTube channel, but I had fun playing it, and it seemed like people enjoyed the stream. I just don't know if it translates very well to YouTube. Like, I'm barely getting to 100 viewers on the 3rd video, which is just absurdly low for me. Anyway, we've got some aircraft that are arriving here, some construction regiments arriving, and that's going to do it for the turn, so let's go ahead and jump in. Neuhauser, just the constant little trolley over there. You can say what you like. I enjoyed the game. All right, so first things first, let's take a look here. Air combat losses, 5 Allied losses to 4 Japanese losses, 3 Japanese aircraft destroyed by flak, 9 operational losses for the Japanese versus 8 Allied losses. Doesn't actually say any Allied aircraft were destroyed on the ground, so apparently I got those aircraft out that were in that airbase that was taken. I don't know why the report said they were destroyed on the ground, but anyway. 7 Buffaloes lost that turn, 3 air-to-air, 4 to operations. He lost 5 B-5 N-1 Kate torpedo bombers, 3 in air-to-air combat, 2 operational losses. I don't remember actually doing air-to-air combat, but maybe we picked off some patrols. Still, that's a pretty good loss. I mean, remember, he has to return to port to replenish any losses that he suffers for his carrier groups. So if he did lose 5 Kates, good for us, especially if they're in the mini Kidu Butai, because that means that group has even fewer aircraft to play around with. 3 Dutch Buffaloes, 2 Nates, 2 Demons, 1 Sonia, 1 Lily, 1 Sally, 1 Pete, 1 Alf, 1 Babs, blah, blah, blah. You get it, 1-0. All right. In terms of total losses, 16 Japanese to 13 Allied. In terms of pilot losses, 2 Allied KIA, 3 wounded in action. You can see here we still have Brownwell, who is the highest-rated ace, who was killed in action. We do have the wounded ace, Dupovi, and then we have Armstrong, who is our only 6-kill pilot who is not hurt. But we have quite a few aces still who are all in good shape. If we actually go ahead and we move to the Dutch East Indies and we take a look here, we'll see that his carrier group is here. They're moving west, which is toward our ships over here. The interesting thing is he doesn't actually have detection on any of these ships over here, so he doesn't know where they are based on what we can tell. But what we are going to do is we are going to have our tankers here run to the south, down toward Australia, before he can get in range. We're going to evac the area. Those ships are going to move south. These tankers are going to move north. This carrier group is going to move south. This is the Hermes battle group. We should actually have these guys move west. So we'll have them move that way. And then maybe return to Perth. Can we have them move just west first? Okay, we can do that. They don't have the most fuel. We'll turn react off. But hopefully this gets them out of the way and out of range. I could send them to flank speed, but the problem with that is we'd get out of the way real fast, but we'd basically be out of fuel. We're sending this surface battle group to Coast Goose Island to wait it out. We're sending all of these guys kind of away to the north. I think the exception was this. Nope, this mine layer is also moving that way. A lot of issues with fuel, but we'll see if we can take a more direct route if he starts to evacuate these guys. Meanwhile, we have moved our wildebeests. You'll be very happy, biplane lovers. We've moved our wildebeests into Surabaya. We've now got 21 wildebeests, 19 ready. We are giving them drop tanks, which means they can carry torpedoes out to 8 hexes. If we take a look at that here, you get a 100-gallon drop tank, which allows you to carry a Mark 18 torpedo out to 8 hexes, which means he does have to get a little bit closer. There'll be 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So actually not very far away from being able to launch a torpedo attack on him. The problem at that point becomes we need fighter escorts with them too to make sure they don't get shot to pieces. So max range on those is 5, really? Do we have any long-ranged fighters over here? We can use drop tanks, but even so, we only get out to 6. So maybe we should set the actual max range out to 6. That does mean he has to get a little bit closer, but I don't want to get my wildebeest shot to pieces. So we'll go ahead and do that. Cap one up there, yeah. So actually, I'd like them to use drop tanks, but I'm going to set their max range down to 6. Just because I don't want them going in unescorted. All right, so we'll set that to 6, which means if he moves in this direction, is there any way we could hit him? We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So probably not unless he moves north a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he'd have to move north slightly to get into range, so that may not happen. We could move our aircraft down here to the south, but I don't think we'd actually have any torpedoes here. We don't have any units here that can have torpedoes, so without that, there's no real point in getting the wildebeest shot to pieces without like some kind of torpedo unit there. Let's make sure we still have torpedoes. It's not this unit. There's a headquarters unit somewhere here, yeah. No, not them. There's an air headquarters unit here, isn't there? Yeah, so we've got 100 torpedoes here, so our aircraft will use torpedoes. Torpedoes are on. You can see that it's not red, so that means they will use torpedoes if the enemy comes into range. Also means like if they move west at all from Ascar, we might be able to get a torpedo strike against presumably what may be less well-armed aircraft. We are showing that the enemy has 31 bombers now at Kendari, so we may start to see bombing attacks on shipping and other vessels in the area. We are also sending our... these are some small ships that aren't really worth anything, that I'm happy if he sees and decides to bomb because I'd rather him waste his ammo on worthless ships. The Otis is going to try and pull back to Surabaya. The Holland and Zuiderkursk and Castor are all also going to head north and try and evacuate back out toward India. So hopefully they don't get hit. And that's the situation right now in the Dutch East Indies. Oh yeah, we should probably turn on the attack because those torpedo aircraft are actually naval attack. Set all torpedo bombers here. Okay, so we've now got these guys set to naval. Do we have any medium bombers here? We do. They're all set to naval as well. So we'll have 43 medium Dutch bombers set to naval attack. Take a look at the combat report. Scrolling through here, I thought the first time I played through the replay, I thought I saw something that I didn't see in this. I didn't really see a lot of air-to-air attacks, so I don't know where we lost our air-to-air casualties, but I didn't see anything in the replay. Like, where would our fighter... I guess our fighters fought on the southern tip of Java. Well, I don't know. Ship sunk. Anything lost last turn? Couple of Dutch ships and the British transport, the Allegheny. So that's the situation there. Meanwhile, we're pulling our aircraft out of Singapore. We have 13 aircraft left in Singapore, all damaged, 4 Air Cobras, 3 Warhawks, 3 Flying Tigers, 3 Buffaloes. The rest of the aircraft have pulled out, most to the north, so we've actually got 9 aircraft at Sebang, Hurricanes, Buffaloes, and Flying Tigers. We have some aircraft up here at Port Blair. We've got 8 at Port Blair, so that's 17 between the two groups. And then we have over 100 aircraft now at Rangoon, with some of them being repaired and some of them being fighters that we had escape out of Singapore. You can see here we brought our Warhawk squadrons north. Let's just do this by aircraft model. 2 Warhawk squadrons, the 17th and 21st Pursuit Groups. They don't have many aircraft. Some of them are still in transit. 2 Hurricane squadrons, the 232nd and 488th. 2 Buffalo squadrons, actually one of those was already there, and then the Flying Tigers. So we've got a total of 38 fighters here, with another 17 on the way to bring it up to about 55. We also have heavy bombers here. We've got 2 groups of Flying Fortresses, and I replaced the 19th Bomb Group 93rd Bomber Squadron. They had 3 Flying Fortresses, replaced them with 7 LB-30 Liberators. So we will have a slight upgrade for our aircraft in the area. It's going to take a while for them to get up to speed. Geez, 18 days for 2 of the aircraft. But you can see here that they carry 8 500-pound bombs, actually a bigger bomb load than the B-17. They're less durable, but they have really good range. So a nice, B-24 bomber there. Those 7 bombers allowed us to shift 3 more B-17s into the 30th Bomber Squadron, so it'll have 6 aircraft. So we now have 12 B-17s and 9 Liberators, 19 heavy bombers. We also have 34 medium bombers, British medium bombers, mostly Blenheims, a couple of Hudsons based out of Rangoon. And so that's allowing us to start building our Air Force up here at Rangoon. Additionally, I haven't moved some of these aircraft down to Rangoon yet because we need to get some headquarters units here because we only have 78 aviation support despite 110 airframes. But we also have some almost 20 Blenheims up here at Lido, and then we have 48 Hurricanes here at Chittagong. And that's a huge number of Hurricanes to give his aircraft a little bit of a surprise, when they do show up. So that should be nice. I don't think I've got some Hudsons over here at Karachi, about 20 Hudsons. The 3A Hudson actually has an air or surface search radar. I'm also loading up 2 squadrons, 1 more of Blenheims here, so 24 Blenheims are loaded up as cargo and are headed toward Karachi. And then we also have 16 more Hurricanes coming down here to Karachi as well. So that'll put us up at over 64 Hurricane fighters. Actually, when you include the squadrons pulled out of Singapore, we'll be closer to around 80 Hurricanes that we can base out of Burma. So that's a pretty strong fighter wing in addition to the P-40s and other aircraft that we hope to replenish over time and get back up to strength. And then the 24 additional Blenheim 4s means that we could theoretically have almost 60 medium bombers plus the 20 heavy bombers So a pretty sizable air wing. Not enough to obliterate the Japanese when they bring in their really heavy forces, but enough to slow them down and give them a bit of a bloody nose. Meanwhile, we are moving on this Thai division here to the east of Pegu. We have our troops in motion. The troops moved 22 miles on their first day march, so I'm assuming they won't be attacking tomorrow, but they will probably be attacking on February 3rd, and hopefully they have enough strength here with their 500 and, what is their assault value? 590 of those forces against the Thai division here to drive it back with great loss and reestablish our contact with Molman so we can pull out an additional 32 assault value worth of troops. The Tesserman BAF group, the Burmese squads there, and then also the 6th Burma Rifles Battalion can pull out from there as well. Additionally, we are amassing a pretty sizable force at Chittagong. Assault value is only 276, but there's actually quite a few good units in here. The 7th Hussars Armored Regiment, a good number of engineer units and artillery units that we want to filter into Burma to get Burma up to strength. We're building fortifications all along the Indian border with our troops here, but we're also moving a few of those troops into the Burma theater. So you can see here the 18th British Infantry Division is crossing the mountains from India into Burma. That's going to be a slow process. It's going to take like 23 days for these guys to cross the mountain hex before they can get in to the region. But when they do arrive, that'll be an additional 436 assault value that's coming their way. Additionally, we've got the 63rd Indian Brigade and the 254th Armored Brigade coming across as well. We just have to be careful because Burma doesn't have a good supply line in from India, and it's very easy to chew up all the supply you have here, especially once the Japanese arrive. So we just need to be mindful of not over-reinforcing if it starts to look like a fail situation. If we move east toward China, unfortunately, our aircraft at Changath, none of them got repaired, so we still have 11 that are grounded on the ground. 9 of our Flying Tigers did escape out to Chongqing, and they're resting there. You can see here that I'm also starting to move. I have a few units that are in basically full strength at Chongqing, the capital of China. We've got 2 mortar battalions, the 3rd and 4th heavy mortar battalions. Each of them is basically at its full TOE. 48 and 48. The support's a little bit low, but the mortars are there. So we're going to move them toward Chongqing to aid in the defense of there. We're also moving our anti-aircraft units here that are near full strength as well into the area to maybe give his bombers a little bit of a headache. And then the 1st Chinese base force is staying in Chongqing. Actually, we need the engineers there. But we are moving the 36th Chinese Division nowhere, actually. Why do I say that? And we're trying to replenish the 96th Chinese Division. We've issued orders to allow it to receive replacements because it needs more Chinese rifle squads and other things like that. So that's the situation there. The artillery regiments here are all massively under strength, so they're going to remain in place. We'll have maybe one of them draw reinforcements, and then we'll kind of load up the other units slowly to ensure that we're building competent units and not just a bunch of skeletons like they are right now. That's the situation in China. Batan's chewing through supplies. Its flak is killing about 800 supplies a day when it gets bombed. Unfortunately, there's no way to turn that off. I have issued orders for my anti-aircraft units to switch over into reserve status to see if that saves supply. So we'll see next time that they bomb. We have some additional supply that we're going to try and run into Bataan. We've got 1750 on board the Yat Sing, which has already made several successful runs into Bataan. It's going to take 3 or 4 days before it arrives. We're going to flank speed it in once we get close, but hopefully we can unload some supplies there. And then we've also got the Zeeman, a patrol craft, which can carry up to 635 supply, which is apparently fully detected in port, so that may not survive very long. But we're going to try and rush it in there to Bataan as well. And maybe we can bring 2,300 more supply, which will give us like 3 more days at the current supply levels to get it up to speed. But we'll see. That's the one silver lining is every time we run those ships in, they do use like 300 to 400 fuel that then he's not going to capture when Bataan falls. One of you mentioned Miri and Brunei and the oil that they have there. According to our intelligence and our recon, more than 50% of the oil-producing facilities at Miri were damaged, so he needs to send engineers there to fix. Last recon indicated that 112 oil was being produced versus 189 being damaged, so it's a pretty beat-up oil facility at Miri. Not a lot else going on. Troops at Nomaya continuing to hold out bravely. They're up to 13 assault value here between the troops. We'll see how much longer they can hang on. Maybe a day, maybe more. We also have the carrier groups coming toward New Zealand, so they're still making their way over here, burning a good deal of fuel. But they're gonna dock here on the southern tip of the northern island here at Wellington, where they'll replenish and they'll kind of decide where to go from there. We've got some tankers that are sort of transiting and moving around. We've got about 20,000 more fuel about to arrive at Melbourne from the U.S. East Coast or West Coast, and then we've got some additional fuel coming in here from the Dutch East India, 24,000 oil coming in from Oosthaven, another troop convoy from Perth, a small amount of fuel coming in from Surabaya on a AVP. We've got 5,100 fuel coming in here from Oosthaven, 7,500 fuel coming in here from Surabaya, and that's kind of the ships that have fuel on board them right now. We also have this one tanker task force, which we're kind of trying to run in a weird... Well, actually, no, these guys, we're going to have them move north to try and make sure they avoid the Japanese carriers here, but that'll be another 19,000 fuel coming from the Dutch East Indies. Palembang itself actually only has 10,000 fuel right now, although it has nearly 500,000 oil, versus 42,000 that's been sucked down to Oosthaven. So that's some good news there. We'll see how these aircraft being based off Celebes affects the next turn or so, but that's the situation. Meanwhile, we are bringing some additional reinforcements. So some of our troops from the East Coast did arrive at San Diego, and so as a result, I am loading up a bombing group, the 28th. Is this Coast Guard? CG 20 Coast Guard 77th Bomber Squadron? I don't know if that's really Coast Guard or not. In any event, we're loading these guys up. They're B-26s, and then we're going to send them... where are we sending this task force? To Pago Pago. So we're going to send some tactical bombers to Pago Pago. 2-engine ones. We'll fly them in low and ravage any enemy shipping. We're also going to be sending another 16 Warhawks to Pago Pago, so we'll have about 40 Warhawks on Pago Pago, in addition to the 60 or so fighters that we have on Suvi, and they'll have fuel tanks so they can kind of move between them. They're moving on AKVs, which are air transport cargo ships. They're basically like ferries or whatnot, so they'll be able to hopefully come in a little bit better supply. And we've got AM escorts to help against any enemy submarines. They're allowed to move at 16 knots, which makes them a little bit less of a target for subs because they're a little bit quicker. Additionally, we're loading up the 1st Marine Raider Regiment, the 1st Coastal Artillery, or the 57th Coastal Artillery Regiment, and the 110th Base Force, and we're moving them to Christmas Island to build that base up against any potential surprise attacks by XTRG. So we're going to be moving them down here. I don't know why this goes further than that. That must be a different task force there. But we're going to load them up and move them to Christmas Island, where we're going to expand the airfield and port, and it's going to be our main refueling facility to the south of Pearl Harbor for convoys headed for Australia. So we're going to build that base up, and we're going to include those units, which will bring our assault value on the island around to 100, 120 in terms of good American units that'll be well dug in. It won't stop him if he launches a division at Christmas Island, but it will stop sort of these little battalion or SNLF size forces that he might try and cut our supply line. Additionally, we are going to bring a Marine Coastal Defense Battalion to Paranan Island, not because it can do anything. It's a small island, only has one port facility, can't even have airfields on it, but we just want to make sure that, again, he doesn't try and sneak a small detachment of troops in there to interrupt our supply lines with sort of float plane recon that would hamper Pago Pago. So that's that situation. What else? I think that's about it. The battleships arrived at Pearl. We disbanded them to get them into port. So we've got some new battleships just showed up. The Mississippi and the New Mexico just arrived. They were immediately disbanded to repair their systems damage. These other guys are headed back to San Diego. 2 more battleships are on their way to Pearl Harbor, the Colorado and the Warspite, so theoretically we'll have a battle wagon force of 4. I did convert a bunch of ships at San Francisco, so if we look at the repair list, not repair list, was it San Diego or was it Los Angeles? I thought it was San Francisco. Oh wait, all ships. So if we look at all ships here, we can see we converted 3 cargo ships to AKEs, which are ships that can refuel enemy or friendly ships in harbor, and we've converted 4 cargo ships to troop transports, because we have lost a fair number of troop transports, so we want to make sure we have adequate assault capabilities. These will be pretty good vessels when it comes to launching counterattacks, and so in about a month, maybe we'll start considering our first strikes at the enemy. Meanwhile, the Maryland will be ready in about 48 days. We already looked at the carriers, and we've already got the Canadians here on the way south towards San Diego. We've got a bunch of regiments that have arrived at San Diego. I spent a few points to add a new engineer unit. The 19th Combat Engineer Regiment was converted to the Pacific as well. And we're sending... Are these guys going to Penryn Island? Yeah, they're going there. So they're going to go there to build up its defenses. We've got 2 more infantry regiments at San Diego. I'm kind of toying with leaving them there for like 2 weeks so we can form the Admirals Division from one of our brigades or regiments at Fort Ord, which we need to spend to move it over. But it might just be more valuable to spend those 3 units all separately to different islands to, again, form tripwires and sort of quagmires and more Nomayas for him. And I think that's kind of it for this turn. I know it's kind of a short turn. It's not a lot going on. We'll see what happens in the next turn with regards to his carriers and other ships that are moving around in this area. If we can get any torpedo strikes on any of them with fighter escorts or what any of that's going to look like, we'll find out. But with that being said, that's about all I have to say for this episode. So we'll go ahead and sign off here. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, as always. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.